guys, welcome back to another episode of Rock Talk. This week we are covering the basics. So we do have David Leaton, who is here with us, Courtney King, who is here with us, and Ryan Brown, a special guest. So I can't wait to hear what everybody has to say about everything that's going on. I am so sorry we were a little rushed getting started today. So hi, David. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Kirsten?
I'm doing great. Glad to see you. Anything new happening in your world?
Getting the side-by-side on the trailer tonight, getting it strapped down and ready to hit the Madras tomorrow. Jeff and I, who is the vice president of our charity, we're headed up tomorrow with our wives, going to spend a couple of days in Airbnb and go to the rock mines. I'm going to go to Polka Dot Agate Mine and Richardson Ranch and see if we can pick up some materials.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Awesome. Hey, Courtney, welcome aboard.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I have been sick this week. So
Oh, no.
It's a friend of mine said to me earlier, well, you never slow down, so I guess God's sitting you down.
He's like, you need a break.
That's it. So sit down for a few days. It's put me behind schedule, but that's okay. I've certainly gotten some rest. So I thought I was better, and then I ate, and I'm not better, so it's okay.
Oh, no.
So, I had a little bout of food poisoning, so. For future reference, don't eat expired stuff. It's not good for you.
No. That's a really bad idea, actually.
Yeah, I was like, it's only a couple days. It should be fine, right? Yeah, no, it's not fine. So.
Well, I've always just said,
what was it that you ate?
But
cream cheese. We get this fresh cream cheese from a grocery store here that doesn't have any preservatives or anything. And I thought, well, it's only 2 days out. It should be fine. Yeah, it was not fine. Yeah. And I paid for it dearly. So I will be buying processed cream cheese from now on. Yes,
probably a good idea. At least for a little while.
So, nothing new to report on this end other than a little bit of misery. So.
The only thing I have going on that's new in my life is I have been doing leather crafting again. So I have been making all kinds of things out of leather just for fun to entertain myself. So, Courtney, since you were the one that got us this guest that's coming on with us today, can you do his introduction?
Sure.
Thank you.
We have Ryan Brown with us today. He is the owner and manager of the Glacier Bros auction house. They do slabbing and rough materials, basically, but he has some experience with cabbing and making things like plugs and that kind of stuff in his past. He's a wonderful person. Good friend.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to add Ryan to the stream. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Ryan.
It's going great. Glad to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Sorry, I am all giggly. The lead up to the show tonight was very strange, so sorry. So, Ryan, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Because I've never met you, and I would love to hear about your business and what you got going on.
Okay, so me and my little brother Andrew do this together. It all just started with a love of stones, and then COVID happened, the whole COVID thing, and we just decided to do something for ourselves, something that we love. In the beginning, we started making ear jewelry, like plugs out of stone. In the beginning, that's how we really got into everything. But at the beginning of our live shows, we got Lake Superior agates. We were cutting them live. That's the first thing we ever did was cut Lake Superior agates live on camera.
Well, that's a great idea because it's a surprise every time, and you never know what you're going to get, and suspenseful, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool. Where'd you go from there?
So from there, we got a Cab King. We started producing plugs and started an Etsy store. And kind of set us apart in the beginning is we were doing stuff out of materials that a lot of people weren't, like Barramamba and Larimar, things like that. In the very beginning, right when we started, I didn't know any better. I just cut into whatever looked pretty. So And then in the end, we decided that we wanted to get a big slab saw and start cutting rough and doing live shows because we really loved being in front of people on camera and talking, getting to know. Now we have this huge rock family. We love everybody. We talk to everybody on holidays, stuff like that. But we sell to people all over the world, and it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun.
That's a really fast story. Like I think Dave kind of can relate because I think we all can actually. Like once that bug hits you, it hits hard and fast, and you just want bigger and stronger. So yeah.
So I have to ask the question, Ryan. By the way, I'm Dave. If you can't, see my name on the screen, I know we haven't got to meet yet. And this is what's really great about a show like this. We meet people from all over, and maybe we don't know them. We see them on Facebook, But this is a great opportunity. And I wave my hands because this is how I talk. But I have to ask the question. You said you got a big slab saw. How big is big?
Okay, so we didn't want to go like big to the point of a 36-inch because we wanted Highland Park. We know Sherman Rowland, one of the owners of Highland Park. So we ended up with a 20-inch. So we can cut pretty much anything we want. As far as turning rough into smaller pieces of rough to be able to slab, I can pretty much do whatever I want. So
awesome.
We enjoy it. We love it.
I just set up a new 10 and a new 16. Highland Park the same way. Roland, we had him set up. He's a backer. He likes our charity, so he kind of one of those guys. We were the same way. We were going to buy one of the shaping machines is what we originally had set out to do. We decided to hold off on that, and we did this instead, so we worked with them a little bit, and so I set up two new ones this summer.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Ryan's been talking about a shaping machine for, about a year and a half now, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to get it. I'm telling you.
But now his next thing is a huge flat lap.
Yes. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Okay, guys, you got to stop and explain what a shaping machine is. Remember, we are for beginners here, and
Okay. So with a shaping machine, you put a die. So say if you wanted to do a heart, there's a little die the shape of a heart, and you put it in the machine. And then you would cut out, say, a 2x2 inch square of stone. You put it in the machine. There's these little cups, and they hold the stone in place and turn it. And there's a grinding wheel on the bottom. And as it turns, it moves around the shape of the die that you put in and creates the outline of a heart. Perfect cab shape. So then you just go and you polish it from there. And you didn't have to do any of the shaping. It does the shaping for you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. You can even make eggs out of it. You can make small spheres with that same machine. Depends on the dies, depends on the wheels. The wheels have different shapes. Some of them are concave. They have grooves. They have multi-grooved. There is all kinds of stuff you can do with this silly machine.
Yeah.
And, I want one.
But what I want it for is for the saddle plugs.
Oh.
Saddle. So if I put a 1-inch die in there with concave, where I want it to be concave, I just put a 1/2-inch thickness. I get a 1x1 cube, maybe a little bit over because you want to have some extra so it can cut it down. And it cuts the whole thing out. All I have to do is polish it. That's it. So I can make sure that the pairs match everything.
Well, and you're perfectly sized. I mean, customer says, "Hey, I want a 5mm set. I want an 8mm set." Another great thing that you can do with this, believe it or not, the 13-sided die that are so popular, you can make them out of stone with this machine.
Yep.
There's a plug for everything that you can imagine. You just have to know how to use them, how to get them set up the way you need.
David, when you said that initially that it can make eggs, my brain went to scrambled eggs. I was like, how does that work? My blonde is showing.
They actually, believe it or not, and it's not as much a cam on that one as the shape of the wheel, and it will set it to a size, but the shape, because of the way it's indented and the length of it, you can set that in there and it will rotate that, and it's at an angle, so it will cut your eggs to the taper just like you would if you were doing them on a sphere machine or something like that.
David's done some research into this machine, I can tell.
Oh, yes, I have. I'll tell you a really quick story since he brought up Sherman Rowland. I called up because I had looked at the Chinese machines you can get for $900. HP's machine was at the time like $3,900. So I called up and I got a hold of Lizelle and I said, Lizelle, I want to talk to somebody that really knows this machine. Why should I pay this much money for this? And she said, well, you need to talk to Sherman. Okay, who's Sherman? Well, one of the owners, yada, yada. So I got Sherman on the phone and I told him, I said, look, these Chinese machines, I said, they're $900. Why should I buy yours? He said, let me tell you why. He said, the Chinese machine, he said, it will make a great product. He said, but we bought 10 of them before we designed our own. And he said, one thing we found out, he said, the Chinese don't know anything about putting in a seal or a washer or anything else. And he said, when you put the oil in, he said, the oil is just everywhere and you're constantly replacing them. And we had to put giant tubs under the machine and we just keep recycling the oil all of the time. So they made their own and they made it to a quality spec and standard so that you didn't have to worry about the oil because they are oil cooled, just like your saw is. And so I think we were on the phone about 2.5 hours that time because, I explained we're doing this for our charity. We buy rock tumblers for kids that have autism, all that. And he got really excited and he talks more than I do.
Yeah, he talks a lot. He's amazing. He
is.
But one thing that Highland Park does do is they take designs that other people have made that are good in the industry and they make them better. And
right.
That's what I love about them. That's why I know Courtney also is a Highland Park.
I am.
Highland Park person.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
really good quality machines.
They do that.
I'm a Harbor Freight $45 towel cutter special that's lasted me for the last 6 years, so I ain't complaining.
Nothing against Harbor Freight, I'll say that.
But see, here's the reason why. See, you have these more delicate little hands and this soft touch.
Oh.
Guys like me get on something like that, it's like a hammer and they don't last as long.
No, not at all. No, I push too hard.
Right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I have no patience.
No, me either.
Courtney already relates to that part.
I do. And the big hands, too. I have big hands as well.
I got big hands. Someone get me someone get me one. All right. So today's topic, I want to change because my mind lives perpetually in the gutter. And so, yeah. So today's topic was supposed to be back to the basics. So I just kind of want to go over the basics of tumbling, the basics of lapidary. Just give me your top 5 basic things that you want to make sure that brand new people know. Go, David, first.
Take your time. Don't get in a hurry. Do your research. Understand a little bit about what you're getting into. Talk to people who know a little bit about it and have done it. Go on the rock groups, if you're tumbling, slabbing, whatever, and just read about it first before you go in, and then, take the time. Don't get in a big hurry and don't get disappointed too fast.
So be ready for failure. It's okay. Everybody fails when they're starting.
You can't be successful without failure.
Yeah.
And you will have a lot of them.
You got a story about that, Ryan?
Oh my gosh. I'll tell you one that was really bad, okay? So I didn't understand because I'm a big guy. So I'm not afraid to grab like a chunk as long as it was big enough to cut on my tile saw that I had. I had like a Ryobi tile saw, okay? And I had a 2-pound chunk. This is about this big, tiger's eye, 1 inch wide. I was trying to force it through this tile saw. And the tile saw jammed, and I lifted up on it, and it hit my chest at about 200 miles an hour and put me straight on the ground.
Wow.
I learned really quick. Yep.
Oh my gosh. When you were talking about a story, that is a story. Did you go to the hospital?
No, oh no. It didn't hurt me that bad. No.
I would have been in the hospital. Oh my goodness.
No, I didn't go to the hospital. But it sure as heck shocked Andrew. He was standing right by me. He was like, "What was that?"
Wow.
So, David, since you're the tumbler guy here, do you have anything specific for tumbling? Like, like picking your stones. Like, I know that's always a big one. Can you talk about what the process of picking your stones out is?
The first thing is to keep everything in the same hardness group. So kind of understand enough about the stones that you're picking up. Most of what I do is jasper, agate, chert, petrified wood. Those pretty well are all in the same hardness group, and put them together. You know, when you're going out, and if it looks like it's nothing, it might not be anything. So if somebody says, "Hey, that's leverite," and you say, "What do you mean leverite?" He said, "See that place where you got it? Yeah, well, leave it right there because it's no good for anything." You know, so get it wet, take a little look. Some stuff you're going to throw in. You know, I'm not going to take the time and grind everything down first before I put it in the tumbler to see if it's going to look nice. But you're going to have some stuff. You just kind of want to know a little bit about the stone so you know what to pick up and what don't. And so I go to the beaches, go to the rivers. I'm not so much looking for agates as I am things that will polish regardless of what they are inside. So I pick up a lot of what we call river jasper, ocean jasper. It's all the same thing. It's just where you pick it up at. And so I like the harder materials. The softer the material, the harder it is to tumble it and get a shine successfully. The harder the material, up to about a hardness 8, it takes a little longer to tumble, but you're going to have greater success with trying to get a good polish on it. And the same thing, don't try to cheat the time frame. So the average of throwing in into 60-90 grit, it's an average of a week the first time. And you look at it and say, oh, well, they've only got a few lumps. Well, if they have a few lumps, it's still leverite. Throw her back in there and tumble her a little bit more. And tumble it until, because it needs to have, you guys have to excuse me, I'm hoarse right now. So it needs to be as much without flaw as what you can at the 60-90 stage, because it's just going to look horrible later on. If you don't, you're going to wish you had taken the time to go ahead and follow all the way through. So make sure it's nice and smooth the way you want it. It might have a little pit or something here and there, but as on the average, let them get in there, round out a little bit, take all of the off the outside, the roughness, and then run them through your other stages, but don't cheat the time. If they don't look done, they're not done.
Yeah, the same could be said for when you're doing a lapidary for the first time, and you really have to focus and stay on that first step very long time and make sure that first step is very good before you move on. So, yeah, we all know that from experience. That's everyone's first failure.
Actually, you know, I encourage people for their first tumble, if you can find some cheap material to buy to put in your tumbler, buy some material and tumble it the first time, just so you kind of have a feel. You know the tumble, it's the right material to have in there. They can sell you the media to put in with it if you need it, so you have the right media as filler. It's just called filler, so usually it is ceramic pellets. Put the ceramic pellets in with it after the 60-90. You know, understand how full you need to have the drum, and do that the first time, and then so you'll have an idea of what you're looking for when you go out. Unless you know people to go with and you let them guide you through. And again, with tumbling, just like anything else, a matter of fact, I think with tumbling, even more than if you're going to do cabbing, read up on it first. Get some information, talk to some people. You know, some of us are just lucky. I just went out and picked up a bunch of rocks and threw the tumbler, and I had a couple of nice ones come out. But that doesn't always happen. Don't everybody look at me at once.
Oh, I know, right? So, Courtney, I know you're sick. You're probably not up to talking too much tonight, but I would love to hear your take on what you think the basics for lapidary is. So for a person whose very first time it is doing lapidary.
Right. So I think, you know, for me it was, I went through several stages of trying different things. So find what you're going to love to do. Right. So like I started with tumbling and I hated it. Didn't like it at all. So, and I went and bought a little Harbor Freight tumbler. Not a big deal. But I didn't know enough at the time. And right. You're 100% right. I was throwing in, we had gone mining in North Carolina, and I had some ruby and sapphire and, stuff that I found. And I had some fluorite that I had bought, from Amazon, and I didn't know any better, and I just threw it all in together. And of course, I ended up with no fluorite and some really ugly sapphire and ruby because I didn't take the time. So I very quickly decided I didn't want to do tumbling. And then I went and I got my husband's Dremel, and I started doing a little carving, and decided I didn't really like to carve, but I liked to shape. And then I started getting into the cabbing. So, same thing, go slow. Find what it is you're going to love to do before you start spending a bunch of money on equipment and supplies and a whole bunch of stuff, only to find out that what you chose isn't really what you really want to do. So, take the time to figure out what it is about the rock business, because there's so many different areas, so many different areas of things that you can do. Find the one or two or three that you really love to do before you invest a lot of time and money into it. So for me, it's cabs, right? That's what I love to do. I can do, I like slabbing too, and I do sell some of my slabs only because, I buy these big stupid rocks and I don't need all of it. I only need a couple slabs out of it. Like, why do I need, 40 slabs? I don't. So I do that part of it as well, but only because I have the excess. But for me, it's making the cabs and, for the people to make jewelry out of. I can make jewelry too. I can do a little bit of carving. But what I love to do is making the cabs. So that's where I focus my energy.
Yep.
And then
you find that one specialty.
Exactly. Where you're comfortable, where you're happy, it's my little Zen zone area. And then every now and then I do specialty things for special people. So.
How about you, Ryan? I know to throw you on the spot here, but with what you're doing, isn't it? It's mostly sales, or what would you say the number one focus you have?
Right now, a lot of the stuff that we're doing is consignment stuff. So we'll get stone in from people, and we get to do all their fun stuff and slab up all their stuff. To me, I'm being so serious. I love slabbing. Like, she loves the cab slabbing. It's my favorite thing on the planet. It really is. Like, just knowing I'm the first person to see that ever makes me so excited every time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Every time. But the whole selling thing, it wasn't really what it was about in the beginning. Of course we wanted to do something where we could, make money from it, and make it more than just like a typical hobby. But then it became this connection that we have with everyone that we've sold to, because I can't tell you, it's not very often that people come in and they only come to one show and they don't come back. You know what I mean? They come in, we laugh. If you talk in our chat, I'm gonna respond to you. We have so much fun. And I try as hard as I can to learn about the stuff I'm selling. Even if I get new product and I've never had, I'll research it to try to find out everything I can. So whenever people have questions, I could tell them where stuff is from. So you can come and learn a lesson just from sitting in there watching our shows too.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ryan's shows are a lot of fun. It's a whole little family going on. It's really nice.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, and there's never any pressure. Like, he's like, oh, you can't buy anything, big deal. Stay and have a good time and talk to us. Oh, yeah. It's beautiful.
But
building a community is what it's all about. I think all of us, we all have our own little communities, and it's just nice to have people who are like-minded.
Yes, and that's been a big bonus for me. Like Ryan said, making the money is great. Being able to pay the bills is great, but that's the bonus part of it. It's really about making the friends and making the connections and learning about the rocks.
Right.
That's really the base of it, I think.
Doing what you love.
Yeah, exactly.
So Ryan, since you're saying your love is slabbing, what are the basics of slabbing?
Okay, I think before anything, you have to know your saw. You have to understand how your saw works, everything on your saw. You have to know how to change your blade, align your blade, how much oil it needs, what type of oil it needs. And then after that, A lot of mine was trial and error. Okay, so whenever we got into this, I did a lot of research on everything. I spent a lot of time before we decided what we really wanted to do. But learning how to orientate a rock in a saw to get the best slab quality that you can was the hardest thing to learn. Definitely. But now I'm at the point where it's just natural. I pick up a stone, I look at it, I put it in and go. You know, but that was hard to learn in the beginning.
So, Ryan, what do you do if you don't know? Like, do you just put it in one way and cut a slab and then try it a different way? Or how do you learn how to orient it properly?
No, so I'm super stubborn when it comes to stuff like that, and I won't just put it in a way that I don't want to cut it from. I started taking 1x1s, little 1x1 pieces of wood, and I would jam them in there to make that rock clamp the way I wanted to. Whatever I had to do to get that thing to clamp and be stable,
right?
That's the trial and error that I went through. And now we came up with these custom blocks to where pretty much anything can fit it whenever we wanted to.
Right.
But just that was the hardest
so it's just like learning the grains of the stones and that kind of stuff, how it's gonna.
Yeah, or just
a
even
natural...
being able to look at a stone and tell, like, what the slabs are going to look like.
Right.
Or roughly what a slab is going to look like on the first cut.
Right.
That was hard in the beginning, you know, because if you get Crazy Lace or, let's say, Laguna, and you cut it one way, you could get shadow banding in your parallax bands.
Right.
But if you turn it 90 degrees and you cut it, you're not going to get any of that. None of it. So that was a lot of trial and error. That was a lot of trial and error, but other than that, running the saw is not hard. It's not a hard thing to do.
Ryan, you do have a question from Patti. Can you see that on the screen there? She says, "Do
other people's stones to slab or cab?" Yeah, no, definitely. So I do not cab. If you're looking for somebody to cab, the best cabber I know is Miss Courtney King. Period. She's definitely the best cabber that I've ever met my entire life. But I can definitely slab whatever you need, as long as it's not over like 12 inches. I could do it.
Because she's got a new name now. She's going to be known as the Cab Queen.
There you go.
She honestly deserves that title.
But I actually, just to answer Patty's question as well, I absolutely, people send me materials to cut for them all the time. So I'm more than happy to do custom cutting for anybody. So when you send me your materials, it's just an hourly charge. You know, however long it takes me is what I charge you, plus the shipping back, obviously.
She's good, I promise you. I promise.
Yes, those beautiful turquoise plugs Ryan is wearing, I made for him.
Love.
How thick are those? How thick was that slab?
Stupid thick.
So I think that, what'd you do, half inch? Half inch thick?
They are 3/4 thick and an inch, a full inch around. Yeah.
Wow.
He's a big guy with big ears. So I made him some Sujolite ones too. But that's those little specialty things that, like, I don't love to make plugs, but I can. You know, so certain times I'll do special things for special people if asked, you know. But as far as cabbing, yeah, I'll cut cabs for anybody.
These are the Sujolite ones that she made.
Nice.
And Sujolite is not easy to polish. Those look nice.
Thank you.
She's fantastic. She is so good.
Thank you, Ryan.
So I had a question I was going to ask Ryan, but now I can't remember. I think Courtney probably asked it and I got an answer.
Yeah, because even though I will slab some stuff, I just have to keep turning the rock. And I waste a lot of rock because I don't know, like, you have that natural ability to look at a rock and say, okay, this is how it should go in the saw. Yeah. I don't have that.
Right.
So
it took forever.
You know,
it's something I definitely learned. I didn't know that in the beginning at all.
Yeah.
Well, now, and I think that's what I was going to ask Ryan. And I just started slabbing. I just got my first rock saw 2.5 years ago. And so it was trial and error the same way because I didn't know anybody around that had one. My dad did it years ago, but, it's been a long time ago. And I think he kind of learned the same way I did. But when I get a piece of rough that is not windowed and I can't see what's in there, I'll first cut off one end, and then sometimes I'll take a slice down the opposite side just so I can get a read on how that material is going to lay. And then probably like you, I have, 5 or 10,000 pieces of 1x, 2x2, door shims, whatever's out there to try to get that. As a matter of fact, I've got one piece of purple cow now that I'm looking at, and I want it cut. I'm like you. It has to cut this specific direction. And I got so frustrated after about an hour of trying to get that in the vise on that 16-inch the other night, I said, another day. I am not putting it in without getting it the way that I want it.
Do you want a piece of advice that might help that I figured
Sure.
out a while back? If you can just put the stone in the vise enough to be able to just cut it flat, okay, and be able to
Right.
glue it onto a board, you can glue it onto a board with Gorilla Glue and then clamp that board into your vise, and then it's orientated the way that you want it to be able to cut. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I thought about doing that very thing, but this is a big enough piece of rough that I'm afraid if I do that, it's going to hang out there far enough that I'm going to be in some real trouble. But I might give that a shot before it's over with. Yeah, I'm afraid that as it goes through, because of such a large piece, the weight of that it's going to end up coming loose. And I've not had a piece of rough come loose in my saw yet and damage a blade. And they're not cheap blades. I mean, you're talking about anywhere from $150 to $300.
I have one.
One?
I have one, yeah. Trial and error.
I used that board trick with just Elmer's wood glue, and it worked just fine. It worked great.
Oh, really?
It was for a giant dugway geode that I had to take down to a local shop, and the guy looked at me like, why is there a piece of wood on this? And I was like, it is so that you can cut it the way I want it cut,
Right.
To have a saw,
and
that's the dream.
That's the nice thing about the Elmer's. If you get the really good Elmer's wood glue, the high quality stuff, when you put it on there, oil does not soak in to cut it loose, but water will. You can throw it in a bucket of water for a couple of days, and the water will saturate it, and it'll come loose, but it won't with the oil. You can leave it sit in that bucket of oil, and it will not permeate it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's pretty safe.
Yeah. So how do you, if you're using super glue, how do you get the rock back off the wood with the super glue, Ryan?
Me with a chisel.
Okay.
I've
I've got
muscles.
I've got two or three
I just
pieces
use a chisel.
that are stuck to wood, and I have not figured out how to get them off yet.
Yeah,
Well,
a wide chisel, like a 2-inch wide chisel.
Okay.
One
And
hit.
with a hammer. Okay.
One hit, turn the block, hit it again, turn the block, hit it again. It'll go. It'll
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Another way, too, Courtney, is if you have a big enough container, you can pour a half gallon of acetone in it and set it down in there, and in a couple of days it should soak it loose.
Okay.
And as long as it's not dyed or stabilized, it's not going to hurt anything.
Right, exactly.
And
Exactly.
it looks like a commenter says heat will release the super glue too.
Right.
Oh, yeah, like a heat gun? That would
Yeah.
probably
Yeah, but you need to be very careful with that because it creates cyanide gas. Okay, when you heat super glue,
Right.
yeah, I would just pop it in the freezer, pop right off.
And you can see these that I've got on these wood screws like this. That's what I've been doing, is heating the back of that. Before I found out just last week, thank you very much, that you could throw them in the freezer and pop them off. Now, heating a piece of rough that big or a slab that big, like Courtney's talking about, that might be a little bit more difficult to do as far as heating one. Probably if you can't chisel it, throw it in the bucket of acetone, and that would work.
Right. Well, if it creates cyanide gas, I certainly don't want to heat it. But I didn't even, I cut calves, and I know you can throw them in the freezer. It didn't even dawn on me to throw the rough in the freezer. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Wow.
Well, we do it with dop wax. I mean, why not super glue, I guess? I never thought about it.
Yeah, exactly.
for sure.
So, Kirsten, I've not heard anything from you about the techniques that you use in what you do.
Right.
Oh, well, you know what? I'd love to talk about it. So basically, Ryan, what I do is I teach Dremel lapidary. So basically DIY lapidary. It started about 7 years ago now when I started this channel, maybe 6. I think it's 7. But but there was nobody on YouTube that was making videos about how to do Dremel lapidary, and I really just wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to stick with, and if the investment of that, $2,000 wheels was going to be something I wanted to do, and I didn't have the money. So I was like, what can I do with what I have here? And I started with a 5-gallon bucket and a clamp that I made by hand, and a little drip water system. And that video has like 500,000 views. And it's crazy to me, because to me it's just like common sense. Well, I'll just do what the big guys do, only I'll miniaturize it. So I came up with creating the 1-inch leather Dremel polishing pads, and a couple years later you see that they're the same ideas for sale, so now I'm just buying them because it's so much easier. But I think basically when it comes down to getting started with Dremel lapidary, you want to make sure you have a good high-powered Dremel that has plenty of torque, but is also gentle enough for doing the lighter touches that are required. Basically, if you go back and watch any of my videos about polishing, you'll see that I always include like tips and tricks, and make sure that people have the correct safety equipment. I think one of the biggest mistakes people can make is working on a stone without doing the research on it first, because there are some stones out there that you have to be very careful to work with. Everything is workable, but you have to take the proper precautions. Tiffany stone, you want to wear a wet mask.
Yep.
You don't want to breathe that into your lungs, because it can cause some serious problems. Same with working with anything that's got asbestos in it. The copper minerals, you want to just be careful that you know what you're working with. You don't want to think, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, but then cause yourself some damage. So always recommend a workstation. For me, I do a lot of dry carving, so having a workstation is great. I work with very soft materials like the honeycomb calcite, and I don't, because it's only a 3.5, I don't need to worry about my diamonds except for getting overheated. So I just take my time, and that's what the big carvers do who work on great big carvings. When I'm working outside, I don't really worry about so much wearing a mask or anything like that, because I'm outside. But I always encourage it. I always encourage safety glasses. If you're not working in a workstation, the idea that you're working on something you love and then you cause irreparable damage to yourself, just it's always good to be safety minded. And in my Dremel lapidary group, we do challenges. We have people in there that are like Courtney and Dave, who are very well versed in the different steps you need to go through to make a polished stone. So we encourage people to come over there, ask all the questions you want. So I don't know if that explained anything, but I do love this so much that I created some journals, some notebooks. The links for those are in the description. But I keep track of what I work on. I'm kind of like a fastidious, nerdy girl, and I have to have everything written down. I have to have all my research. I have to be able to like highlight it and cross it off, and be able to look back and go, how did I do this one thing? Oh yeah, so I'm not constantly having to repeat the same mistakes. And I'm old, so brain fog, brain fart, whatever you want to call it, I get it a lot. So keeping a journal when you're first starting, I think, is also a really good idea. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to this?
I definitely think that you brought up a good point about wearing a mask. I wear a mask every day. Every day. Because, we had gotten some mohawkite from up here where we lived. No idea it had arsenic in it. I had no idea. Yeah.
There you go.
First 6 months that we cut, I didn't know that I needed a mask, and then our friend was like, "Oh, did you know you need to be wearing a mask?" And I was like, "No, but I'll go get one right now."
Right.
Well, and that's a really
Go ahead, Dan.
that's a really good point. And we talked about before knowing your materials. And when I first started out, I'm just buying stuff that people had pre-slabbed and was just putting on the machine, cutting it. And a couple of times I got pretty sick, and I wasn't aware of the reason why. And some of us are more sensitive than others. Rocks are minerals. I mean, there's every element that you can think of, and it'll have anything from arsenic to cupric to whatever. And where a lot of those aren't really dangerous, some of us are more sensitive. And when I'm cabbing, even though I use water, if I use my bare hand, some of those stones will still make me sick because of the contact with the skin that maybe it wouldn't bother somebody else.
Yep.
But I'm a little bit more sensitive, so I've learned to wear nitrile gloves. Depending on what I'm doing, I have the dust masks that I wear, so I grind wet, so most of the time a dust mask is okay. I do have a full N95 over here if I happen to need it for something, but it's really important to understand that a rock is a chemical, and it's all through bonding of one mineral to another. And so some of them can be, just like Kirsten was saying, they can be pretty dangerous. So protect yourself. And do not keep hard as nails on your nightstand. So
I don't get it.
Cut everything from like bumblebee jasper to cinnabar. We've cut all that stuff, but it's after knowledge, being able to make sure that you use safety precautions every single time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Every time.
Mercury is probably the most dangerous of them all, even over the arsenic, because cinnabar is one of those that's different than other rock that has mercury. Cinnabar actually bleeds liquid mercury, and mercury isn't as much if you get it in your hands. It's the vapor that comes off of mercury that is dangerous, and so you're breathing in that vapor. Also, if you have it on the wheel, there's enough of it. If you get it hot and it's in the rock, there's enough raw material in there, it will do the same thing. It will turn it to vapor, and then it's pretty bad for you. Some of this has been, I went into it knowing my wife is a chemist, and she teaches chemistry as well, and so some of that I knew, so yeah, be careful.
That's one of the things that. Yeah, that's one of those things that's really important to me, because I do like to do a lot of science experiments with chemicals and rocks. I do teach the acid polishing techniques that a lot of stone carvers use. And one of the things I didn't know until I went to a class was that when you put pyrite and muriatic acid, it makes a deadly gas that it stays down and it doesn't dissipate. And so unless you have the proper equipment, you could accidentally yourself. So just do your research, guys. That's probably the most important thing ever.
Don't get scared to death of this. Probably 90% of the stone out there is 100% benign. I mean, you're grinding, you're doing stuff. It's just, but you have to know enough to know about that 10%. I mean, there are guys who have been doing this for 60 years. They've never used a glove. They've never worn a mask. Because they grind wet. They're not worried about silicosis. I was a trucker for a lot of years. I hauled silica sand, and it can do a lot of damage to you. But if you're doing it the right way, so don't get scared to death and say, "Oh my gosh, I have to run out and buy a full suit of armor to put on before I can do any cabbing." No, just know your materials and have some fun with it.
There you go. It's funny, I have a friend of mine that is a wire wrapper and silversmith, and she called me the other day. I had cut her some custom turquoise for a bracelet she was making. She sent me the measurements rather than sending me the setting so I could cut it to the setting. So I sent it back to her, and it was just a hair too big. So she called me and she said, do I need to wear my full respirator when I'm trying to... Now she's taken it down probably a 0.5 millimeter, if that, and it's just turquoise. It's not anything. So I said, yeah, you don't need to put on your full respirator, but just make sure you use a little bit of water. And she was just going to bring it down just a little bit with the Dremel to try and, fit it into her setting. But she was very, very concerned about wearing the proper equipment because she just doesn't know that much about the stones. So I thought that was good that she thought enough to ask too.
I love that she reached out to you and that she felt safe to reach out to you. You are definitely a kind, and you give off such a great aura about you that, people can feel comfortable coming to you with questions and not feel scared, like intimidated. There's a lot of guys out there. I got to say, there's a lot of guys out there that are putting a bad name on things because they are so, I don't know how to word it, but just confrontational, maybe, like, oh, well, you can't do that because this is how I do it and everybody's got to do it this way. And it's like, well, we all do our own way, we all struggle with our own things, but having someone that you can come to. Courtney, you are always awesome. Dave is awesome. I'm sure Ryan, even though I don't know you, is awesome because you come highly recommended. So just reach out, guys, if you have questions about things. We are a safe group. All of us, we are safe. You can come to us with your questions and we will be happy to help you find answers, even if we don't know them.
Absolutely. And I think that is really important. There's so many people, I shouldn't say so many, but there are those people out there that feel like their knowledge is not to be shared. It took me 30 years to learn this, and I'm not going to give it to you for free. And I feel totally the opposite. Somebody taught me, and I'm more than happy to help somebody else. Knowledge should be free.
Right. It's not a competition. There is room for all of us to succeed here. We need to remember that.
Yep, exactly. And I think
well,
that's
and
really
Kirsten,
important.
I saw you ask the question to the audience about what their favorite material is to cut, and I don't know if you saw Jaws Jr., who is one of our locals right here in town where I'm at. And he said obsidian is absolutely, his favorite. And he does a lot of obsidian, both tumbling and cabbing. And I'm telling you, he is phenomenal at it. He posts the stuff all the time. And the polish that he gets on his obsidian, I have managed to get one piece that way, and it took me a lot of work. But he tumbles the stuff and gets it like that. And it's like, it's a gift. And it seems like a lot of people have a specialty that they work in, and his is really in that obsidian area. For me, it's marcasite. I love to work marcasite more than anything else there is. And so, you just kind of, if you have a question, find somebody that knows a lot about one thing, get that one thing from them, and pick up a little bit of some of the other stuff.
Right. Yeah, because we all definitely have our favorites. Absolutely. And you're right. Obsidian's a lot of fun to cut. A lot of people won't cut it because they get cut by it. But it's a lot of fun to play with, but it does take a lot of work. So yeah, if you have that gift, Jaws, good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I found somebody online. I went in one of the cabbing groups that I'm in because I was just having a time, and he said, look, he said, with obsidian, he said, once you get your dome, you've done your basic polish. He said, when you have that fog, he said, it's not about having to go back to the other wheels. Like normally you would look at it and say, wait a minute, I missed something somewhere. And so you go back to 280 again and you work your way up. I did that like 4 times. I wore out a couple of pieces of obsidian that were half the size they were when I started. And so I had this one extremely beautiful piece. And I got on there, and Richard Williams, he told me, he said, look, I've done this 45 years. He said, it's tough. He said, on your wheel, he said, with your cerium, he said, start in the center of your wheel and work your way out little at a time until you find that place on your wheel where it gets just warm enough not to shatter your cab, but it gets it just hot enough to cut that fog out of there. That's the type of information that you're looking for. Find people who have a specialty in an area like Jaws Jr. does.
I love Jaws' just comment, obsidian requires a package of Band-Aids. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Very much so.
Yes, it does.
That's great.
I just saw Patty's comment. I am from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That's where we're at. We're from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Courtney, where are you from?
I am just north of Baltimore, Maryland, but I'm an Army brat, so I'm from everywhere, but currently I live in Maryland.
Okay. And I tell you, I saw Patty's comment. I am from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That's where we're at. We're from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Courtney, where are you from?
I am just north of Baltimore, Maryland, but I'm an Army brat, so I'm from everywhere, but currently I live in Maryland.
And I'm just outside of Salem, Oregon, in a little town called Dallas that everybody mistakes for Dallas, Texas every time I say it. I wish, you know.
Yeah, and I'm from Alaska, but I live in Ogden, Utah. So Utah is the best state for rock hounding. You cannot argue that with me.
My favorite thing that comes from there, Jim Bone, 100% is
Ooh,
my favorite.
guys, my favorite. I love
Oh, you
it.
must be
I have
getting Jim
so
Bone
much.
from Tyree.
Yep, Tyree Lamb. Love that guy.
Yeah.
I love that
Well,
guy.
Kirsten and I actually got to go see him last summer.
Oh, I'm jelly. He's a good dude. He's a really nice dude, for sure. He talks, like, I reached out to him for some Jim Bone knowledge because I had learned a bunch of stuff by myself, and he really went out of his way to make sure that I knew what I needed to know. And there's been times where people have posted suspicious materials, you know, for sale, trying to say that they're Jim Bone, and I literally have tagged him in posts before, and he just comes in and he's like, no, that's not Jim Bone. Everybody just spreads. It's gone. Because he knows what he's talking about. He does.
He does. Yes.
Yeah, there's a couple common stones that often get confused for Jim Bone, whalebone. From the California coastline.
Right.
What is it? Bogwood?
Pocket rot.
Pocket rot?
Pocket rot wood. So it's petrified wood that the little pockets have filled with silicas or calcite sometimes, and you have to understand the pattern of Jim Bone and the webbing that's around it really to notice the difference, because a lot of people don't know.
That's good to know.
And they call it, honestly, when they sell it to you, they call it dino wood. And
really?
It's really pocket rot.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, they'll call it dino wood. And so a lot of people, because of that misnomer of what it's called, oh, I got dinosaur bone. This is Jim Bone. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen brecciated moss agates that look like it before, too.
Right.
So.
Mark Anderson is also another person. He has a lot of YouTube videos. I do have a YouTube video, if you go into my drop-down menu, of how to treat Jim Bone with Hextall. It's a really short but very good video. It just is the basics. Actually, it's what Mark sent me a message, and he's like, here, you do this, this, and this. And then, so I just made a quick video, and I was like, yeah, this works. This is great. And I highly recommend it. It's a really good video.
Yeah. You guys should go check Mark out. He has some of the most amazing engravings on his page. I love the engravings.
I love that he's getting into this so much.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the polish that he gets using the Hextall is it just doesn't get any better. It's just phenomenal. And one of these days, I have Hextall. I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to work with it. I did just cook some material that I'm going to. It is Rosetta lace that I cooked long enough to get the oil out of, and it's a really important step if you're going to use any type of something, Hextall, Opticon, anything that you need to fill with. You got to make sure there's no oil in the pores that you're trying to fill. And so
it will bubble out. Yeah, it will bubble out underneath.
Yeah. So at about
250
to 300 degrees is what I've been baking at. Do it outside, because I promise you're going to bake it about 8 hours, and it's going to smoke that whole time, and your house is going to have a horrible smell because of the mineral oil that you're burning out of it. And so
you would suggest doing that outside?
Oh yes, yeah. I found an old toaster oven that you saw on the one that we did a couple of weeks ago, and I just do it in the toaster oven out on my back deck in a safe place and let it smoke as long as it needs.
There you go.
That's perfect.
Nice.
So, go ahead, Kirsten. I was gonna ask Courtney. Courtney, when you make a cab, what is the most important technique for you? What do you do? What are you looking for? What are you looking at? What is your process?
As far as
making a cab from scratch.
Well, the first thing, is test my slab and make sure it doesn't have any fractures in the area that I want to cut. I'm always looking for a picture. But I also, like when I buy a slab, a lot of people will buy a slab for that one cab. I feel like that's a lot of wasted material. So yeah, I want that one cab, but I also want to, like if it's a I don't know, a 4x4 slab, I want to get 5 cabs out of that, 5 good cabs out of that if I can. Maybe one spectacular one and 4 nice ones out of the slab, because I just don't like to waste material. But I think the biggest thing for me after the dome is the girdle. I'm
with you there.
Super stickler about my girdles. I just, and high dome, low dome, flat, whatever, it doesn't matter. But if my girdle isn't almost perfect or perfect, it'll go in that pile to be worked on later or to go in the rock garden.
Yep. Same way.
That's probably
Absolutely.
the biggest thing for me. And then I feel like, so I don't use, very rarely do I use any kind of polish compound at all. I like the natural polish of a stone. So
Okay.
I will sit on that 3,000 and 14,000 wheel much longer than a lot of other people do. Because people will just go through and then they'll throw some compound on it. Well, I just feel like those compounds wear off and then you've got a dull stone. I don't want that to happen. I want my stones to be high polished naturally. So I'll sit on those last 2 wheels much longer than some other people do.
Have you gone to the 50 and the 100,000 on any of the stones that you do?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Now,
I'm going to add a 14 and a 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find, I rarely, it's not often that I use my 14 either. And it just depends on the stone because, some stones you don't even want to take past a 3,000 anyway. That 14 will dull them. So you just got to be careful. Your jaspers and stuff like that could certainly go higher. But I haven't found it necessary as yet to need anything higher than the 14 if you just spend that extra time. So.
Well, and I was having some trouble with mine when I first started, and I couldn't get the shine out of it that I wanted. And I somebody that I know, matter of fact, Chad Johnson, who most of us I think probably here know. He told me one day, he said, look, he said, just go back. He said, where you want to do, he said, your 280 wheel and your 600 wheel, he said, spend a lot of extra time on both of those.
Right.
He said, make it so, and matter of fact, by the time you get through with a 600, you should actually have a pretty decent polish at a 600 already before you ever go to the 1200 and the 3000. And I didn't realize that at the time. And so I did, I went back and once I started with the 280, you can get kind of a sateen looking, and you go to the 600 and it starts, so it really pops at 3000.
Yep. And I feel like, so when I took my very first lapidary class, he's the guy that taught me how to do my girdles right. And I was so thankful for that. But he also said, it's real simple. When you hit that 3,000 wheel, before you hit that 3,000 wheel, your stone should be beating water like if it was a fresh wax car.
Right.
If it's not beating water at that point, spend a little more time on your 1,200, then go to your 3,000. Because that's where once it's beating, now you're getting into polish, like super polish, right? So that's kind of what I do. If I don't have beads, I'm not done yet. I'm not anywhere.
And that's hard for people like you and I. I mean, I'm impatient. I want to get to that last wheel. I want to go to my next cab,
That's right. And I see, Jaws was saying about the girdle and tracing the line. Exactly. That's exactly right. That's the only way that I have found. And people say, you're cheating, or doesn't it take more time? And it does. I can't do a solid cab in less than 45 minutes to an hour. Unless it's a super soft material, then I can probably pump one out in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But, it's 45 to an hour for every single stone, and there's a reason for that, so.
Well, and I am so bad about wanting that girdle to be perfect that I actually got me one of the visors with the magnifiers in there so I can look at that girdle line. It has to be perfect under that, or I'm just not happy.
Right. Yep.
Well, I am so glad that everyone was here tonight, and I think we covered a lot of information in a very short period of time, a lot of basic stuff that maybe some of the old timers already knew, and I know that it will be beneficial to some of the beginners that are coming into the hobby. So thank all of you. Thank you for coming on and talking about that. I'd like to give each of you just a couple minutes to maybe say what you're working on for this coming week, or just any announcements that you may have. We'll start with you, Courtney.
I mean, what am I working on? I'm going to work on everything that I had planned to work on last week and didn't get to this week because I've been sick. So that phenomenal River Royale, Dave sent me a really nice piece of amethyst sage, so that's going to get cut this week. But other than that, I'm just kind of trying to relax a little bit and get back to being healthy, and then I'll play catch up after that. I made the mistake yesterday, and today for that matter, of thinking I was better than I was, and so today I went crazy and ate like a normal person would eat, and it has set me back. So, being old sucks. What are you going to do?
It does.
Learn how to slow down just a smidge, But other than that, I mean, I'm CNS Services Captain Stones. That's my website, is captainstones.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm all over the place. Other than that, it's just life. It's just life, and I'm just going to keep living it to the best of my ability and loving what I do, because that's what it's about today.
That's awesome, Courtney. I do hope that you get feeling better really quick.
Thank you.
I do want to let everyone know that's watching that if you go into the video descriptions, all of the links for each of our businesses, our contact information is in there, so that way you can get a hold of us. I know some people are interested in maybe getting some slabs made or cabs made, so that's the best way to reach us. Go ahead, Dave.
This coming week, I don't even know what I'm going to have. I'll be back Sunday afternoon. I'm going to be like Ryan. And next week's going to be all about throwing the new materials that I'm going to pick up at Richardson Ranch and the polka dot agate mine. It has to go in the saws. Got to get all three of them going. And so I'll spend most of the week just slabbing. Here lately, that's been mostly what I'm doing. I'm just, it goes in stages. Sometimes I want a cab for a few days, but I've got to find out lately what's in. What we're picking up, like I say, Courtney, she saw some of the amethyst sage that I did. It was just, I could not wait to cut another slab to see what it was going to look like next. So most of next week, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to get back to making pop sockets. That's my specialty that I do, is pop sockets out of whatever kind of stone I get a hold of. We do them for our charity. So we are at Rock Tumblers for Autism on Facebook. We buy rock tumblers and give to kids who have autism, and most of what we do is sell those pop sockets that I make to support that with. So next week's going to be slabbing material to make pop sockets out of.
That's awesome. Awesome, Dave. Thank you. Ryan, I would love to hear more about what you have going on. You seem to have your hands in everything. So what's new for this coming week?
So this upcoming week, we just got a bunch of stone in that I definitely have to slab. We slab constantly, all the time. Like, me and Andrew are on different shifts, so like when I'm asleep, he's awake. That's literally how we work. We slab all the time. All the time. We get like 2 or 3 hours a day with each other, and then it's just right on to work. But other than that, we do shows 4 to 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, no weekends. Live on Facebook. And I don't know, it's a blast. Just come stop in, have a laugh. You don't have to buy anything. Just come have some fun with us. Learn something. I want to get that flat lap, like Courtney was saying, definitely, and start producing big polished pieces. So after I slab things, if I see like phenomenal pieces, I wanna be able to polish them and sell them as polished, like art.
Yes, I love that.
It's art.
So,
it is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, guys, thank you. I will be back, or we will be. We will be back next Thursday, same time. We really enjoyed having you today, Ryan. If you guys stick
Absolutely.
around in the background, I'm gonna pop you out real quick. Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us and just hanging out. And that's what we want. We want to build a community of fun. And next week we will be back. And until then, I hope you guys have an amazing week and stay out of trouble. Keep on rocking.